Ramtha School of Enlightenment, the quintessential school of the mind. The mind. The mind. Before I go any farther, I'm going to do just a brief overview of this beautiful entity that J.Z. Knight created that describes the intelligence in the cell. And her name is Gladys. And we refer to Gladys, again, she is the intelligence in the cell, where science, specifically Stanford University, refers to it as the molecular homeowner. Bottom line, this entity is responsible for repairing the cell, keeping us going, keeping us intact. What is critical to understand is that when we maintain the status quo of who we are, what we like, what we do, and we have no change, the intelligence in the cell is working with the same amino acids, the same peptides, and pretty soon the cellular structure is going to break down and eventually die. The aging process will take over. At Ramtha School of Enlightenment, the quintessential school of the mind, the students are trained how to intentionally alter the light code or alter the DNA code, evolve the DNA code by intentionally observing specific concepts and words. So we do indeed invite you to a Class 101 Remarkable Mind to find out what the school is about, to find out how I could possibly alter my DNA, and why would I want to do that? Thus the point of this presentation. So, simplistically, if an individual born with predetermined reality based on the soul doesn't change and doesn't know how to change, cellular decay is a natural process. When you have knowledge and you understand how the cell works, that in fact there is an intelligence in the cell, that you can in fact alter your own DNA code and project yourself into future timelines based upon those activated DNA codes, you would find that critically important in the days that we are in. Specifically because of the viruses that are on the land. And a term we use here is frequency specific. And what makes you frequency specific with a virus, or what makes you not frequency specific or not susceptible to such a virus? Can we have the first clip of Australia, April 8th, 1999?
The truth is, there never was a flu virus until it was invented. How is it invented? It was predicted once medication was created. I ask you something. Is the American Medical Association psychic? How do they know which flu is going to strike? And it's amazing, they're always correct. But isn't it amazing they always have enough shots to go around? Everything is a state of mind. Everything is.
Key word, mind. Mind. Everyone has probably heard the term as within, so without, as above, so below. When we look at the intelligence in the cell, that statement is absolutely true, because whatever is going on inside the cell, which since 1978 Ramtha has referred to as carbules, science calls microtubules, and we fondly use Jay-Z's invention of Gladys to refer to the intelligence in the cell. So what's critical to understand is that when one is trained on how to facilitate a certain mind, a certain concept, idea in which they can observe, it's going to actually create within these cells very specific amino acid peptide chains that, as Jay-Z Knight would say, Gladys is going to fold secretly and magically and turn them into these proteins that sit on those cells. Actually, if you took a segment of the cell and you opened it up and you looked inside, you'd see all these very fine filaments. And then you have all these proteins that are sitting in certain places on those proteins. On those filaments. And what are those proteins? They are literally collapsed particles of information. And again, if there's no change, they stay static. Body will decay and eventually die. But when trained properly, you learn that through observing new ideas and new concepts, that those proteins will get rearranged on those filaments. They will specifically change your frequency specific and make you now an evolved being belonging to a future based upon the concept of observation. Now, can we have the next excerpt?
So, now that you begin to understand that, we then begin to understand disease a little bit better. Dis-ease. It's interesting about disease, whether it's viral or germs. These two are made up of cells. If it's viral, viral infections enter cells. Now, which receptor site would they enter? A receptor site that is the only thing that's operating, but has little peptide contact. It's true. So then, viruses never enter receptor sites of a being who has no more past, because all the receptor sites are being occupied by the plethora of amino acid peptides that duplicate the plethora of DNA potentials. Germs can't live in a healthy mind's body. Viruses cannot live in a healthy man's body, not even AIDS. AIDS is really simple. It's a virus that lives through and can get into the cell through a receptor site. It comes through only one receptor site. And you know what the receptor site is? The receptor site of the gut. The amino acid that gives information about the gut. That's the only site that it enters. And when it gets in, then it starts duplicating the DNA according to its DNA. RNA starts duplicating AIDS in the body. There's only one receptor site it ends into, and it's the gut receptor site. And isn't it interesting that which practice homosexual activities, that those who abort that which is termed nature, that it is the gut to which they enter. How many of you understand? Consciousness and energy creates reality. I don't care if you like what I'm saying or not, is the truth. How about the gut? It includes the colon. Turn to your neighbor and explain.
That excerpt was from 1998. Did you hear that? We're going to play just a little soundbite from that.
Viruses never enter receptor sites of a being who has no more past, because all the receptor sites are being occupied by the plethora of amino acid peptides that duplicate the plethora of DNA potentials. Germs can't live in a healthy mind's body. Viruses cannot live in a healthy man's body, not even AIDS.
How important is it to have amnesia to the past? How important is it to always be aware of what's sitting in the frontal lobe, what thoughts are taking place, and to be a monitor of those thoughts? How important is it to understand what's happening inside the cells and what the intelligence in the cells is doing with all of those thoughts? Never ever forget, mind is everything. Everything you do to support yourself to have a healthy body and to keep at bay viruses, do it. But the number one preventative medicine, mind. Mind is everything.